Welcome back. Well, a new thread in the impeachment inquiry. Former White House counsel Don McGahn must comply with a subpoena from the House Judiciary Committee, according to a ruling yesterday by a federal judge. It says that McGahn cannot hide behind immunity related to his time in the Trump administration. It sets a precedent that could impact executive privileges for years. The Department of Justice plans to appeal this. Joining us right now is trial attorney Misty Maris. Misty, good to see you.
Good morning.
Will they be able to appeal this? What does this look like next couple of months?
Yeah, 100%. This is absolutely going to be appealed. So it goes up to the next high court. So that's going to be the circuit court, and then potentially to the Supreme Court. So that means this is going to be jammed up for a while in legal appeals. And also the DOJ is going to seek what's called a stay in the interim, meaning that no one's going to be compelled to testify until that high court, whatever it is, comes down with a determination that's final and binding for years to come on these issues.
Executive privilege is not written in the Constitution, it's not written in law, it's by custom. And you want the separation of powers. You can't have Congress going through your waste paper basket each day.
Right.
How do you think the Supreme Court's going to come down on this?
Well, I think it's an interesting question because there really is no precedent. And as you said, look, Bill Barr came out and said, hey, these are conflicts between the executive branch and the legislative branch. We don't really need the courts to come in and make these determinations. Yeah. This is something that we should be able to sort out ourselves.
That's what I was going to say, Misty. I mean, can you imagine if this goes all the way to the Supreme Court? I mean, can you, like, are the Democrats that out of touch with respect to how America feels about this?
No.
And I mean, how's everybody going to feel?
Especially since Americans are about to go to the polls on their own in 11 months.
Well,
to do this before America is making its own choice.
Right. Right, absolutely. And so, look, I think we could see this. This could go to the Supreme Court. Now, again, we're not going to get that decision. It's probably not even going to be relevant to the impeachment inquiry ultimately at the end of the day because of the timing aspect. You know, Nancy Pelosi already said she does not want to be held hostage by the court, so they're going to move forward regardless. So at the end of the day, what does this mean? Well, look, this means a binding decision that's going to impact the balance of powers forever if it gets that far.
Do you think the Supreme Court? Do you think the Supreme Court is going to be one of these cases where they punt and say you work it out in effect?
It's totally possible. That's an avenue that could happen, right? Because they don't necessarily have to make that definitive choice that's going to pave the way. They could say, look, this is something for the executive and legislative branch to work out on a case-by-case basis, which, quite frankly, depending on the circumstances, the result could be very different. You know, even with some of the high-level officials that have been called to testify, that these subpoenas that what we're looking at here, well, the analysis as to whether one or the other should testify is unique to the individual. So a large sweeping decision could be problematic for any administration that comes into power in years to come.
Dagan, did you want to say something?
A couple of things. Don McGahn isn't even being called in front of Congress in the first place regarding the impeachment inquiry. This is related to, he was called because of after the Mueller report that Congress wanted him to testify. That was the first thing I was going to say. The other is, this only dates back to 1971. It was a Justice Department memo that says Congress can't compel a president to appear because it promotes a perception that the president is subordinate to Congress. So this precedent doesn't go back that far. It wouldn't be ripping up literally a couple of centuries of precedent in terms of people testifying. And one option is you go in front of Congress, you don't fight this. You go in front of Congress and just say, I'm not going to say anything. That's one option.
And that was left open by the judge. Said it would be a question-by-question basis whether or not there would be a valid reason to assert any applicable privilege. So that's another way to do it. Now, look, a lot of these cases...
Right, you could say I assert immunity.
Right, absolutely. And a lot of these cases in the past get worked out because they make agreements about the scope of questioning and what areas you're going to touch and not touch. And then those privileges are asserted in the course of the questioning. So how this turns out, look, I don't think we're going to have an answer in the immediate future because this is going to be tied up in appeals for quite some time.
All right, we'll see what that means to the average guy and gal out there who are looking at these hearings and thinking this is so confusing and what did Donald Trump do? You know, we had this unofficial surveys asking people what did Donald Trump do. They couldn't pinpoint it. They don't know. People don't know what was impeachable.
Hard to cut through the noise.
Exactly. Misty, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Misty Maris joining us there. Quick break. And then